What's up? Just tapping in for part two of that first video the previous video I was making where I appear in the same attire, and I was trying to like touch just a little bit on like the dynamic of like uh, push pull, give and take, as it goes to being attracted to things and people a whole life. I was referencing when I was a young boy in the Southwest, like some of these girls that I'd get a very strong crush on. I don't know what there's some things that there's not a real word for in English. Like the closest I can think of it would be like saudade. I think that's I used to listen to a lot of Brazilian music because it's very spiritual and beautiful. It's sophisticated musically, but then it's also very poignant, and you don't have to know Portuguese to really appreciate a lot of like the samba music. I will fall in love with a lot of like whole body catalog canon of Brazilian music going back, and I don't know, to this day I couldn't name many of those songs or know what they were talking about. I got better with Spanish in recent years, so I could probably piece together some of it. But there's one Brazilian song I can, if anyone can, if any one or two people watching this can think of this song, there's a brilliant Brazilian song that's nothing but one syllable. I think it's like la 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 da 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 da. I'm going a little bit different because right now my voice is ringing in my ear, and it's difficult to sing when it does that. But I'd be in love with a lot of Brazilian music for a while back. Like when life became spiritual to me as a young person, I would have some of those experiences around that music that I couldn't understand. But there's one word called saudade, and my mother actually speaks Portuguese. She studied at school, and she told me that saudade is like the one. I think it may have a different inflection, but it can mean like, if you can imagine like a loved one gone to sea, or gone to sea from a loved one. That's like what's referred to as saudade. And I think that it's kind of deep like that, because if you had, say you had someone like all to yourself, right? That's an example of kind of what I'm talking about, like push and pull on a deeper level. It's like, say you're in love with someone, but you have all of them all the time. It's like there's something, they're living with you, they're mortal with you. That's a beautiful experience in itself. The experience with the people we love, but also the absence of the people we love. It's also a beautiful thing where there's something of the fatality of life makes it beautiful. That might actually be why life has something of fatality in it, is actually the beauty of life. Because if life was ever green, ever present, there was no chance of loss or possibility of loss, then it'd almost be like something kind of, it'd be like plastic. Like, is a flower really as beautiful as plastic? It's something more beautiful as a fleeting flower that's mortal. And something of the mortality of it, the fatalness of it. There's something of a fragrance that lingers. So if you've been to a place and it's no longer frequented by people you love, it can be deep and haunting, or kind of like heinous to be somewhere and now be a stranger somewhere where you're from. But also that connection to like people and things in their absence, or in the absence of setting. It's almost like a similar pull and push, where you never have more of someone than when they're with you. You have them in the flesh, in the physical. But then also in a way you have more of them when they're not with you, or there's a part of them that's to be spoken for when they're away from you. And that's like a little bit of the push and pull on the deeper, in the total sense, would be like the experience, the mortal living experience of another person, like say friendship, humor, intimacy, things like that, um, or even just familiarity and routine. But then you take that away, and then that something of that lingers like that, and that's like a push and pull. But according to Arthur Avalon, all of life is actually push and pull, and anything that we would have for motion, it's like a combination of push and pull over something that stays, that's stabilizing. So like, I think if you were to, like, there's these some vehicles driving by now, I would imagine that whatever leverage, because a lot of things are about leverage. So these vehicles, they're leveraging the spending of fuel. So fuel is being combusted, so heat is being introduced to fuel. It's combusting. It's the volume of the fuel changes with the combustion, such to move the piston. And how about it sound like I'm giving a course in mechanics, not being a mechanic. The piston moves the spark plugs connected to the ignition, the fuel, the combustions connected to piston. The piston's connected to the camshaft's connected to the tire, and that's how we go down the road. But whatever of mechanics is no more sophisticated than push and pull, and the combustion is like push. That's like repulsion. Um, uh, um, to be attracted and repulsed by something. So the fuel is repulsed by itself when it has enough energy. So you're so close to someone, you're like you're as close as fuel in a fuel can. Yeah, give somebody a little bit of fire, and now we can't stand it. We're trying to get the hell away from each other. But that's actually like what life is. It's actually push and pull, attraction and repulsion, attraction and repulsion. But it's very dynamic. You could say that, like they would say that online is a combination of ones and zeros, um, uh, 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 odds and not, or ones and zeros. But you could say that life similarly is push and pull, or attraction, repulsion, and all that you would have that's of beauty is a combination of attraction and repulsion, but very nuanced and with cadence, and that would give the tenor or the degree of anything. I've recently come to appreciate that. I think that all of life may actually be fire. Is that because I got this tree behind me, right? But the right conditions and it goes up in flame. According to Arthur Avalon, that fire is potent within anything that can be combusted at all times. So you could say that a lot of life is actually he also says that a lot of life is one substance, like the ether. That'd be like the finest that we can appreciate of a substratum that conveys energy would be ether. But you could say that there's, from that standpoint, there's like one substance, one actual substance in all of life is an iteration and like a condensing or an activation of that substance. And I think that that's why, like, so if you a lot of us, we think very linear in the Western terms. I'm reading a book called guitar chord theory, and they're saying that you can actually appreciate music as a circle as much as a line, because we think of it like do re mi fa sol, like in a straight line, but it actually breaks down into like a circle of like of 6 points. So for harmony, like for a chord, you can break down any chord. And if you put all the notes of the scale in a circle, you can connect. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit vague. So you put all the points of you put the 12 notes in a scale. You put 12 of them, but it makes two combinations of six. So two scales, one odd, like that. It would be a scale like da 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 da, that interval of a. So you have like your minor scales. Those are the most basic, but it's like like a major scale. I read a book on harmony, that we went hunting, we went rabbit hunting, whole half, whole half. That's a regular major scale. And then I can't think of a minor scale off my head, top of my head, but what it amounts to is da da da, right? Da da da, da 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 da, or you could put it in a circle and it'd be two. If you put all the notes of 12, that's also a scale. That C to C is also a scale, but you have that. I think that's a chromatic scale, C to C. And then the diatonic scale would be some other combination of like either what's called a major scale, a minor scale, and then there's some versions of minor scales, and then but it's somewhere in between C to C. But C to C itself, I think that's chromatic, and then some combination within that less than all that doesn't employ all those would be diatonic scale. Most of our Western music is diatonic, but you're like jazz and more complex stuff, it's chromatic. You could say that some of the music that I do on this channel would be more so chromatic because it's not diatonic, so it therefore be chromatic. So maybe chromatic is also diatonic, but diatonic is distinct from chromatic, sounds different. It may be a little bit more arbitrary, even as much of beautiful music you can make with diatonic. But in that sense, you can say that all of music is actually it's like a circle. And if you, what that book explains, chord theory, is that as you go from C up to C, are you really going up or down? Because you could soon go down to another C. So there's actually, it's kind of, Arthur Avalon has said that there's no absolutes in space. There's no absolute. There's nothing absolute that's objective. Therefore, there's no such thing as right or left without a reference, up or down without a reference, east or west without a reference. And it's actually the same for music and harmony. And so we think of things as like reaching for that high note like that. But what I think is that, like anybody, so we're ostensibly made of the same reality, right? So I'm sitting down for food with my family or like people that I'm friends with, right? We're all eating the same food. That food came from the same, near about, if not the same, animal, that's fauna. near about, if not the same plant material, that's flora. So I don't know if flora refers to nuts and things like that, but for intensive purposes, it's either plant material and or animal material. Um, but and you could say that maybe animals are like uh, animals are living, plants are living. Animals are the mobile of living. Plants are the stationary of living. There's nothing of motility moving without something stationary. So you could say that plants are our support in this life. But I think they also need us in our activity to be healthy themselves. But you could say that we're eating the same food. So, but my voice would be very distinct from another person's voice. Now, if you try to appreciate harmony or even the inflections and the eccentricities of a person's voice in a numerical like this many hertz. Now you can break down music into hertz like that. But I think a more what actually was better than appreciating harmony in music and even people in life in reality in terms what's better than numerical would be degrees, because if we're all the same substratum that is potentially fire, that is ceaseless activity, fire, you you could say that things are a degree more than a, because if there's no if all things are relative, what basis have you to quantify anything, including numbers, in absolute terms if all things are relative in the first place? So the only thing it would be absolute would be relativity. So therefore, you could appreciate things better as degree. So I'm talking like this. Now I'm talking like this, and like this, and like this, and like that, and like that. So it's still my ass at all those different ranges, but it's like a different. It's like now, in a Western sense, you would say that those are different. It probably sound like that's. I'm not trying to flex with that, but for a tense of expression, if you broke that down into the numerical value of up and down, that that's one way to appreciate it, but that can be stifling. A better way would be that my ass is like this. Now I'm at another. It's like boiling like that. So when things go from it boils, it's one way. You put a little bit more feeling or effort, or like for a singer, it'd be like you put your mind somewhere different in your diaphragm. Now it's at a different degree, but a degree would be better than a number, because numbers kind of sound. A lot of our reality is very individualistic and autonomous. We are deeply autonomous in Western society. I think that we show some of our notions of evolution, evolutionary theory. Evolution, it really impacts a lot of our psychology deeply in the West because we're steeped in that. But it's very arbitrary, self-centered, and autonomous. And on a deeper level, it could probably be appreciated broader as a circle, or as more than linear. That book on chord theory points out the distinction that we think in terms of linear rather than space, like shapes or like circles, but we can be limited by that. But if you think about it, so you think of you're trained evolution as this is your line in a straight line, but likely you're actually having different ancestors yourself. They're going on to have their lines, but also these lines are they're stemming. Some of them, it's multiple lines stemming from the same line, but then also redoubling and converging. So the line breaks out this way, you go that way, but then you fall in love with that one that actually had came from that line. So I'm not promoting like I'm not there's sophistication in diversity, and anything that's too homogenous is not viable. That'd be like a community that's socially or sexually isolated would be homogenous. Then if anything is broad and diverse, there's a limitation to diverse. I'm not speaking in terms of humans, but like from human to animal within species. There's something to be gained for homogeneity and something to be gained for heterogeneity, but it can be life can be not viable if it were too homogeneous or heterogeneous, and in the strictest terms with that. I don't mean to be arbitrary with that, but just that so you do have a need to diversify in terms of evolution and propagation, but also in the truest sense, if you think of it in a straight line, that's arbitrary. In that, like a lot of things, it's more so. And also, like I was listening to a person named Morris Brooklyn, and he was saying that a lot of times people they'll quote, they'll appropriate African term aesthetics around family, like as in the ancestors, as though it's this long broad line of endless ancestors. But according to Morris Brooklyn, your line of ancestors refers to maybe two or three at the most iterations of your paternal ancestors. That's the ancestors, and you are actually rebirthing one another, kind of like you go now, you go now, you go back to you, now you go now, you go now, you go back to you. That's why you look like a lot of your actual ancestors. And I think that there's something more profound about the effect of twins than we normally think. There's deeper, like I've noticed that a lot of this, the really deepest experiences in my life, and actually the consequential people in my life up till very recently, have been actually attended by some form of actual twin. For example, I've made another video on this channel about how some of the salient experiences I had in my life, some of the close friends I had, either my close friend had a twin, or my close friend or the close friend of my family member had a twin. And that there was something, the significant people in the people that had an impact on me, it may be that I impacted for the best, would be, there was something around twins. Like my best friend growing up, his he had a pair of younger sisters who were fraternal twins. And then I've known there's been something significant about twins in my life. And then so recently I was getting some help around a garage, my family's garage, some stuff some mechanical stuff. And there was a person that I struck up a friendship with recently, within the last couple of weeks or month. I had known him before that, but he has a twin, and it's just significant like that. But I also think that when people have children, the fact that your children look so much like you, it may not be that not only are they your descendant, not only have you propagated them, but they may actually be something of your twin, as much as your offspring. They say offspring as that's kind of like animal husbandry, like livestock, like very synonymous with like the concept of evolution. But but I think, but there may be something more of twinning. You may be something of you may be a dual twin of your parents. That would actually explain how you could be so similar as your parents, as to share some of their tendencies and their strong suits and their shortcomings. Kind of like I've known twins that have, a lot of the twins I've known in life have been very gifted in one way or another, and sometimes they share that gift. Like sometimes you'll see twins that are exactly both profound athletes. I had a pair of twins, like these two twins when I was a boy that would play basketball, and both of their ass played defense like people are supposed to play defense. And and damn, um, and so, but then there's like also there's some famous twins like that where there's like some twins that dance, and they have that same gift for dancing. And that might be similar, like how with our parents. But all I meant to say is that life is a lot of attraction and repulsion, and it's also unified. How may things be exactly uh, unified yet distinct? That it's just that these are different it's more like waves, right? So you can't. So the ocean is the ocean. The ocean is one at essence, yet waves are distinct, and they are formed of different converging, complementing, and then contrasting currents. You would have the current within the ocean, that'd be like gravity, but then you also have the current of the moon, that'd be like grace. According to Osho, in India, they have a knack for laying a finger on very subtle things that are with us our whole life. So you have your nose on your face your whole life, but India can say something about your nose that you may not have thought about before. Another one of those would be grace, according to Osho, a descendant of India, but I think that's his own thought, is that as much as you have gravity pulling you down, you think that, oh yeah, gravity is pulling our ass down this whole time. Michael Jordan overcame gravity like that, right? But if you think about it, if you had nothing but gravity pulling you down, we'd have to be about as flat as a pancake at some point. It's not only us that gives us the strength to withstand gravity. There's some form of grace and so you could say that grace and gravity make life balanced and possible, but we're still on the ground, but we still got grace working for us. When people do something incredible, they tap something incredible. It doesn't necessarily have to be athletic or physical, but it's such that what they're doing is overcoming inertia, whether that's like studying, music, inspiration, just being a productive person coming from a very rough background. That's something of grace, and it's attendant of gravity. It has the potential to overcome gravity, but you could say that we default to gravity because gravity doesn't, on the surface, take a lot of effort on our part. Even gravity does take effort because you don't work, you don't eat, you don't pay attention, you don't work. So work is work, but also attention is work, and without that, we're not viable to stand upon the earth. According to Arthur Avalon, a human being, as they stand, is an expression of power. To stand is to express power. But it actually takes work to be able to have this. In order to be stationary, it takes motion to be stationary. Maybe also something stationary to be at motion. But you also have grace. I think in India, another expression of that would be something called udana. So in your body, you have like a dual twin propensity to go up and down. That's what happens when you breathe. So you expand and you contract, you expand and you contract, but it keeps you, you don't appreciate that there's a balance in you expanding but not too far, contracting but not too much. That makes you a viable like that. And that's what a lot of what singers are employing, when that's exactly what singers are employing when they're able to be coordinated around things like their voice. But when there's a discrepancy in that, you exactly get the hiccups. According to Arthur Avalon, that's what the hiccups is that push and pull, but that pull is broader than you think, and the pull and the push is broader than you think, and it's beyond your own body, but you expand up into the cosmos and contract into the earth. I'm somewhat improvising that, just such that it's very potent, but it's very fine like that, and it can get a little bit out of balance, and such as the hiccups. That's actually what the hiccups is. It's from something called udana. There's different currents in our body like there is in the earth, and that's what keeps us alive. And some of that is expressed like in blinking also. I think that some of those properties, I think one might be called vayu, I'm not sure what it's called, but something about our nail growth, so our breathing, our nail growth, our blinking, these are some of the things that take place subconsciously as like a current. And they're different life forces, vitality. In the gross Western bastardized I think it may actually be appropriation, you would call that libido. And I think that libido would roughly and generally refer to all the life processes as it serves vitality and especially sexual appetite. That's a very rough layman actual appropriation. That might be scientific to different degree, but it's actually finer in India, and they would express that likely probably more as art, like the Ayurvedic arts. And I said in other videos that art may be more exact and profound than science, but they're actually more distinct than just to say libido like that. And some would be, and they're also they're complementary but also distinct from one the other. And some of them actually precede, attend, and are antecedent of our life, such as like when a person passes away and the nails continue to grow or the hair continues to grow. That's some of those processes that go past this lifetime. I actually met a woman, a elderly woman. I may do another video about some of her life story, because she has an incredible life story that it would be unbelievable. But I actually had met her son, as he did my same line of work, personal care attendant slash homemaker, and we would visit some of the same. We had one client on the outside of town that he and I would both serve that same woman, and so when you pass off a shift like that, like work shift, you can tell what somebody else is about, their work is about, especially cleaning. He was a mean. There's a couple people that I wouldn't want problems with in life, and that's especially people that are sturdy around cleaning, because it takes grit, patience, and attention to detail and effort and efficiency all at once. And he was a mean cleaner like that. But as circumstance would have it, I actually got commissioned to look after his own mother, who was also receiving services, and so I cleaned for him. So the cleaner of cleaners, I've met two badass cleaners in the Twin Cities. One was a brother from Mexico City, that he was younger than me, but he was a real life badass. And we would be making like $13 an hour in 2010. That was really good money in 2010 at these high rises in downtown Minneapolis. And he was kind of cool because he would wear a ring on his thumb, and I always thought that was cool. But he was just mean as hell around cleaning. He was nice, but he was cold like that, and I was impressed by that. But then later I had another coworker that I would pick up shifts after he would care for the same person, and I was impressed with his cleaning. At one point, I think I won an award for that role that I did as a personal care attendant. They said I was the cleaner of the year, but they had to pick a month, so they just gave me a random month. But they had I had pulled my weight for a whole year like that while studying at an online school for music. But I was impressed by this guy. Then I would work for his mother, but then that I found out that actually wasn't his. He was there's a story to their family that's very deep, and his mother said that she went to the same church that I did, and she there was a one person that used to give me confidence in church. He used to call me doctor, when I was a young man. I hadn't yet been to university, and he liked some of the things that I said and the questions that I asked in front of a congregation. But I found out that he passed away, and then she was telling me about when she was visiting, and she was just telling me that there's something to do with the eyes, that there's something that can happen with people's eyes when they've passed away for a few days that would baffle a lot of people. But the this objective way to appreciate that would be that it's these life processes like udana and I think vayu, like things like passing gas, urinating, defecating, even probably laughing, breathing, snoring, blinking. These are some of these currents of our body, but then they're broader than our body. But what it amounts to is like push and pull, and that's also like when you see like things falling in love, like animals, like squirrels chasing each other, birds chasing each other. Some of what makes life beautiful is that push and pull, but it's also like what Arthur Avalon said is that if you think of your human body, right, the human body can be attractive then attractive, but it also can be repulsive, right? So like things like letting like passing wind is repulsive, but other things about the body are inviting, if not intoxicating. That's because the body is composed of both things that would make it attracting and repulsive. As a broad, the human body is more profound than people can appreciate. How much power, according to Arthur Avalon, the human body is a vast magazine of power. So like a lot of times, people who are, you'll notice that people that are obsessed with power, they can also be obsessed with things like sex. Some people have said that a lot of life, if not all of life, is somewhere or another about sex, but sex itself is about power. That is also, sex is about the human body, which is a magazine of power, which that would make sense like that according to Arthur Avalon. The human body is vast power. It can be tapped in different ways. Just me enunciating myself, that's the mind, the ideas of a mind, of expressing myself, those are not independent of the organic processes of a body, the nutrition that would make that viable, but also the activity in terms of employment and exercise that would make me viable to park in front of a tree and talk like that. Then should this take traction and influence and inspire erudite a person, that's real actual power that's taking place from the magazine of a human body that is my person to do that. And they said that I once heard they say the pen is mightier than the sword, and I recently heard a YouTuber say that uploading content is an iteration of the pen being mightier than the sword. But such is that the human body as an organism, as a being, as a creative potence, is much broader than what we give people credit for when we say things like man, woman, boy, girl, things like that. Is that a human body? Those are just the most simple of boxes to organize people around. But a human body, a human, you can't actually define it because it's free. It's free to define and undefine and redefine itself. Um, but um, but I don't mean to be like arbitrary by saying that, but just that you can't place anything ultimate on a human being. But with that, humans can be very attracting and very repulsing, and a combination of that makes life what it is. But you could say that all of life is like an ocean, and the only thing that's distinct within an ocean is just the currents and ripples, and the different forms of current, including grace, like the pull of the moon over the ocean is like the grace, which would temper gravity, because life probably wouldn't be viable with nothing but gravity. But we don't appreciate that grace may actually be a real thing, not only in like being transcendent of ethics and morality and circumstance, but also literally actually pulling us up as much as we're being pulled down. But so you could appreciate things better as degrees and or rhythm and cadence is what makes things distinct one thing from another. But it's all one substratum ether, but it's also ceaselessly active, thereby I say fire. But it's fire may be one iteration of ether, but ether is still fire and fire is still ether. But we have the propensity to exist within degrees. So the only difference between anything may be degrees. They say that we as human beings are this much 99.9% the same as other members of the primate family, but we are markedly different to appearance and like activity, not better, different. Because they say like some primates like they can like a human being can only remember like 7 digits at a time, generally like a phone number, 7 digits. You go to the eighth digit out, and the human mind can't usually fathom that in one go. because of the limitations of long and short-term awareness and compartmentalization of memory. But other primates can simply, they can go out to like maybe 8 if not 13 decimals or numbers at once, and that's probably likely because of the demands of their environment, what it would do, place what that demand would do to their need for bandwidth in terms of long and short-term memory. And then us as humans would be different, but it's not better or worse, it's just different. But that we are this much the same, yet also this much distinct, speaks to that it's about degrees, is what makes anything different than anything. A lot of plants and trees are largely the same, yet they can be very different, and one thing can bless you or kill you. They say that, according to Arthur Avalon, life is poison. Life, that's what's referred to as samsara. Life is the interchanging waves of poison, um, waves, but self-interested waves. That is waves of poison. But they can conflict, contrast, collaborate, conspire, compete to make life viable. So you heal poison with a better poison, a more suitable poison. Life is poison. You get through life with a suitable life for you, but it's still poison like that. But it's like also like in waves. So something can be medicine or it can be poison, likely just by degree is what makes something that different. That's kind of like what I was having. But the reason I brought that up is because what makes things like have the right, like the sweet spot or the right knack for things being interesting, is when it's the right combination of push and pull. So I'm spending time, but I also have other things to do that would be great, but I'm also choosing to spend time. But if I need to, I can still do other things that are great, but I'm still going to spend time while it's viable for me to spend time, because I'll still yet need to do other things that are great. That's kind of the aesthetic that we're going for, to be attractive and viable and pleasant around one another. That's what we're actually struggling for. We really struggle a lot with that, to get that get that firing right. Um, so like you'll see like different settings, like when we're socializing and we may be attracted to people, we may be repulsed by people, and we're trying to get the right vibe going, to enjoy one another's company. But it's a little bit of a push and pull like that. So I'm checking in to make a video like this while I got my deliveries on, so that if I get a ping, I can. That's the first time I said ping out my mouth. That's the first. If I get a delivery, this actually isn't the. This is the great place for making content, but not the great place for deliveries to come in. But I'm having that going in the back at the same time, on the phone at the same time, so it gives a different attitude and cadence to the content. So I'm not content just to sit here and run my mouth, because I'm actually interested in doing better, not better, but other things that are also viable to help me keep my phone running and my life going. But I probably shouldn't have said that to sound slick, but just to make it sound like I'm chilling here, but I got other things to do too, and that gives the right vibe of what we're going for. So that's what I was really referencing with this push and pull thing. But I did have some more ideas about like solidarity, that I made in the video prior to the immediate video before this. And I'm gonna try to get back on that, but this is a little bit long-winded, and I still gotta try to earn a little bit while I still got sunlight on my side. So I hope this can be a valuable to someone. And uh, if you, I normally don't ask for like a like or subscribe or engagement, but what I would like to say is, if anyone I want to do something talking about the game of spades a little bit, and and how that can be kind of deep. But if anyone on here has any like knack about how do you go about either the game of spades or life as card playing goes, because we all play a little bit of, you could most clearly appreciate life as a game. You have some leeway to be a character, to influence other people, to be influenced by people, but you can win with that, but you can also get messed up like that. So I can sit like this, or like this, or like this, and that's going to make someone have a different appraisal of me walking by, and then give them and possibly myself a different experience. But I'm not actually doing anything against anyone to be like this or like this. Therefore, a lot of life is a game. How are you going to play it like that? But then, so I would like to say, if anyone has any knack around how do you go about a game of cards, if you were given a game of cards, a winning hand, a losing hand, a mediocre hand, how do you lay that hand? And also, what do you think is the greatest card in the game of spades? That's a question I have. If anyone would care to tap in with that, but because I think that there's probably no right or wrong answer to those, but that would be some real game if anyone could tap in with that. But one love.